His name is Brian Bennett. On the streets, this 24-year-old South Central LA native is known as Waterhead Bo. And it is on the streets, police say, he made a fortune.
Play hard, we can play hard.
These sheriff officers play hard because they are up against some of this city's 40 to 50,000 street gang members. The police have arrested many of these people before for robbery, for selling drugs, and for murder.
Damson Idris gave one of his most powerful performances as Franklin Saint. The young, driven, and cold-blooded Kingpin audiences couldn't get enough of in Snowfall. But even with all that brilliance and swagger, Franklin was only a shadow of the man who partly inspired him, Brian Waterhead Bo Bennett.
It is alleged that Bennett, with Colombian-born accomplice Mario Villabona Alvarado, brought 1,000 kilograms of crack from Colombia through Mexico to LA streets every week.
Bo was one of Los Angeles' biggest drug lords, reportedly making around $10 million a month at his peak. His operation was so massive that when the feds finally brought him down, it triggered a real drought across the city. Bo was the real deal. Let's get into it. Brian Bo Bennett wasn't born in California. He came into the world in Detroit, Michigan, back in 1964. But before he was even old enough to understand what home meant, his family packed up and moved west to South Central Los Angeles. His mother, Minnie Finley, and his father, Ernest Lee Bennett, managed to scrape together enough to buy a small house on West Florence Avenue, right in the middle of what most people would have called a war zone. Life on Florence wasn't easy. The sound of sirens and gang activity were all part of the backdrop. Inside the house, things weren't much better. Bo was the youngest, and in a lot of ways, the most fragile. He suffered from severe asthma, eczema, and allergies that constantly kept him in and out of hospitals. Because of that, his mother tended to shield him more than his siblings. His father, on the other hand, had a temper, one that often landed on Bo's half-brothers. Those boys stayed knee-deep in street trouble, bouncing in and out of gang business, while Bo watched from the sidelines, too sick and too cautious to dive into that world himself. Still, Los Angeles had its strange way of showing people both sides of life, the struggle and the dream. During the 1970s, when the Los Angeles Unified School District started desegregating schools, kids from the inner city got bussed out to the suburbs. That's how Bo found himself traveling miles away from the chaos of South Central to attend James Monroe High School in Sepulveda, deep in the San Fernando Valley. That long bus ride turned into his first real taste of another kind of life. The streets out there were quiet, the lawns were trimmed, the houses had two-car garages, and the air didn't feel heavy with tension. Bo saw kids whose biggest problems were what to wear to the prom or what kind of car they were getting for graduation. For a boy from Florence Avenue, that was a completely different world. He didn't just visit it, he eventually got pulled into it. A local white family, Bert and Gloria Schneider, took a liking to him and even let him move in for a while. For the first time, Bo experienced comfort, structure, and a glimpse of the so-called American dream. That exposure lit something inside him. He didn't just want to survive anymore. He wanted to win. But wanting and getting were two very different things. When he graduated high school in 1982, reality hit hard. His GPA was just 1.26, putting him dead last in his class. Not long after, his father passed away, leaving a huge weight on Bo's shoulders. His older brother tried to help by doing house painting jobs, but most of the money went straight into liquor and good times. Bo, now barely 20, was suddenly the one everyone looked to for stability, and he had nothing but pressure and bills waiting on him. He tried to make it the right way. For a while, he worked with the Schneider brothers at their electrical contracting company. After that, he picked up shifts as a box boy at a supermarket in Sepulveda, then later trimmed trees around the city. Every paycheck was small, every job temporary. He'd come home tired, covered in dirt and sweat, with just enough to get by but nowhere near enough to build a future. The dream he saw in the valley started to fade into something distant and cruel. Then, in 1983, his luck changed, but not in the way most people mean it. Opportunity didn't come from a college acceptance letter or a business startup. It came in the form of Mario Ernesto Villabona Alvarado, a sharply dressed Colombian man with quiet power in his demeanor. Mario wasn't just another immigrant trying to make it in LA. He was a lieutenant in the Cali Cartel, one of the most powerful drug organizations in the world, run by the Orihuela brothers and Jose Santa Cruz Londono. The Cali Cartel was expanding. They were tired of just selling. to rich Hollywood clients and wanted to penetrate the urban markets, the streets where money moved fast and loyalty meant everything. But to do that, they needed someone local, someone smart, someone who could connect with the black community without drawing too much attention from the law. Mario met Bo by chance at a car wash. It started as small talk. He was interested in buying Bo's car, but that casual conversation quickly turned into something more serious. They met again at Mario's home, and over time, the relationship evolved into a business proposition that would completely change Bo's life.
Okay, front me a key, and I'll turn it around quick.
Mario saw something in Bo that others didn't. He was young, ambitious, connected, and clean. No rap sheet, no police attention, no gang ties. He had the street smarts without the street baggage. Mario realized that Bo could be exactly what the cartel needed, a face that could move weight without moving recklessly. By the end of that year, Bo was no longer trimming trees or bagging groceries. He was the Cali cartel's man in Los Angeles. He didn't start small either. While most drug dealers had to grind their way up from selling small rocks, Bo began his career moving kilos, multiple bricks of at a time. He was making real money fast, and his neighborhood connections gave him the perfect distribution network. Within 2 years, the business exploded. By 1985, Bo and Mario had built one of the most efficient drug pipelines in the country. Mario sold him kilos for around $9,000 to $11,000, and Bo flipped them for $13,000 each. The profits were enormous. Together, they were moving a metric ton of into Los Angeles every single week. The streets were flooded. The prices of coke across the country shifted because of their operation, and Bo Bennett became something rare, a street CEO. Between 1985 and 1987, what Bo Bennett and Mario Villabona Alvarado pulled off was nothing short of legendary. The two built an operation so massive that it sounded more like a government shipment than a street hustle. Law enforcement would later claim that the duo moved close to 1,000 kilograms, a full metric ton of into Los Angeles every single week.
I've been doing this for 25 years, and that's the largest seizure of drugs I've ever seen in my life, and it gave me really cold chills when I walked in and looked at it, and the magnitude of it has really not sunk into me yet.
The profits were staggering. Bo was reportedly clearing close to $10 million a week, sometimes even more. He went from paycheck to paycheck jobs to pulling in the kind of money that Fortune 500 CEOs made. By the time he was 25, he wasn't just rich. He was generationally wealthy, sitting on a mountain of cash that couldn't even fit into a single house. But what set Bo apart wasn't just the scale of his operation, it was how he ran it. He wasn't some reckless street boss flashing guns and gold chains. Bo approached the drug game like it was corporate America. He understood structure, delegation, and systems. While most dealers were out there risking their lives on corners, Bo was behind the scenes, creating an empire built on order and efficiency.
Brian Bennett, on the streets, this 24-year-old South Central LA native is known as Waterhead Bo. And it is on the streets, police say, he made a fortune.
He divided his operation into departments, distribution, accounting, and security, each with clear roles and hierarchy. The people working under him didn't see themselves as gangsters. They were employees.
The empire that he made illegitimately and that he built illegitimately, just think of what he could have done legitimately.
He created a culture of professionalism in an underworld business, and because Bo never had to stand on any corner himself, he carried this air of invincibility. He felt untouchable, like the streets couldn't touch him and the feds couldn't see him. His network stretched far beyond Los Angeles. Once he had LA locked, his products started moving across the map to Chicago, Detroit, Memphis, New York City, and even smaller cities like those scattered across Missouri. Bo became the plug's plug, the source everyone went to when they needed pure weight at good prices. If was moving through the urban pipeline in the mid to late 80s, there was a strong chance it traced back to him. His clients weren't small-time hustlers either. They were major figures in the underground world. One of his biggest customers was Michael Harry O. Harris, a well-known name out of the bounty hunter bloods. Harry O wasn't just in the streets. He was also a visionary with his hands in entertainment and business.
Eric had told me about Suge's background and that Suge was aware of my background and that he was somewhat intrigued behind my past and he had wanted to hook up with me in some form or fashion.
Using the fortune he made from Bo's supply, Harry O funded Denzel Washington's first Broadway play, checkmates, and later invested in what would become one of the most influential labels in hip-hop history, Death Row Records.
When I asked the question to Suge, what does it actually take? He told me that we could be 50-50 partners for about $1.5 million.
That twist of irony still stings in hindsight. The same money that destroyed neighborhoods also helped bankroll the soundtrack of an entire generation.
To achieve the massive task of getting me out of prison, it took not just money but power and the proper timing. At some point, we talked about getting into the entertainment business.
But Bo wasn't just moving product to the West Coast elite. He also became a supplier to Rayful Edmond III, the DC drug kingpin who practically turned Washington into a war zone. Rayful was getting hundreds of kilos every month from Bo's network. Estimates say anywhere between 300 to 500 kilos. That supply line turned DC into one of the most addicted and dangerous cities in America during the height of the crack era.
Rayful Edmond III, the biggest drug dealer in the history of Washington, D.C., sold some $300 million a year worth of crack.
In court, prosecutors said Edmond's enterprise brought in several hundred kilos of crack per month. It's believed that at its peak, his crack empire was allegedly taking in as much as $300 million.
With that kind of cash flow, Bo had to get creative about how to clean his money. He built a whole financial system around his business. He started 2 fake companies and opened 4 check cashing stores across Los Angeles. These fronts looked legitimate on paper, but their main job was to move dirty cash into clean circulation. To keep things airtight, Bo brought in trusted associates like Jimmy Washington, who helped him incorporate and manage the businesses. From there, the organization expanded into real estate and mortgages. Bo wasn't just laundering money anymore. He was creating generational wealth on paper. To anyone outside the game, it looked like he was a young entrepreneur, riding the wave of success in booming 80s Los Angeles. Mario, meanwhile, extended their reach internationally. His wife, a Danish woman named Helen Nielsen, handled the European side of things. She used her background and connections to move cash through banks in Denmark, Italy, and Panama. With that setup, millions in profits were being washed clean through legitimate banking systems overseas, making it almost impossible to trace. But while Bo was growing his empire, South Central was unraveling. The streets were burning, gang wars, drug addiction, gun violence. It all exploded as the flood of crack spread through the community.
These sheriff officers play hard because they are up against some of this city's 40 to 50,000 street gang members, some of LA's most violent criminals.
Turn around, put your hands on the car.
The police have arrested many of these people before, for robbery, for selling drugs, and for murder. Last year, 328 people were murdered in gang wars.
And Bo, for all his business-like detachment, couldn't ignore the danger that came with his success. He took steps to protect his family. He paid off his mother's mortgage on the house on Florence Avenue and moved her to Northridge, far away from the chaos. He set up his siblings too, buying condos for his brothers and for his sister Carmen. He went even further, giving her a nail salon and her own place to live. But his mother wasn't just a bystander in his life of crime. She was involved. Law enforcement would later observe her carrying bags of cash to his check cashing stores. By the late 80s, Bo was living like royalty. Rolls Royces, Benzes, diamond watches, the kind of excess that made him look like a movie star. His main residence was a penthouse on Wilshire Boulevard, a far cry from the cracked sidewalks of South Central. The building manager often saw him coming and going with duffel bags stuffed with cash, always dressed sharp but casual. But even with all that, Bo never felt completely safe. He was constantly moving, staying ahead of both the law and his enemies. Rival dealers wanted his spot, and federal agents were slowly piecing together the empire he built. For all his precision and business-like discipline, Bo Bennett's empire had grown too big to stay quiet. The sheer size of the operation made it impossible to hide. By 1987, Bo wasn't just a name whispered around South Central. He was a ghostly presence moving millions through cities, banks, and borders. And like every empire built on the shadows, It was only a matter of time before the spotlight found him. He had started making bold moves, ones that drew the kind of attention even he couldn't buy his way out of. Bo purchased a $500,000 mansion in Tempe, Arizona, equipped with sports courts, pools, and more luxury than any 24-year-old should have had without an NBA contract. He was living like a celebrity, but that house became a giant target. To law enforcement, it was clear evidence that someone was stacking money at a level that didn't match any legal income. Federal eyes were now locked on Bo. The DEA and FBI began circling, watching every move. It didn't take long before they caught something that confirmed their suspicions. Near Los Angeles International Airport, agents spotted Bo hauling several suitcases filled with cash out of a hotel and into a brand new BMW. One of his associates drove off in that car, and within minutes, local police pulled it over. Inside, it was $300,000 in cash. The feds were patient. They didn't just want Bo, they wanted to dismantle the entire network. Over time, they built a picture of how the money moved, and even Bo's own mother, Minnie Finley, unknowingly became part of their case. Agents watched her make runs carrying heavy bags of cash to his check-cashing businesses. Proof that the whole operation was deeper than street-level distribution. But the real leak came from the international side. Mario Villabona's wife, Hella Nielsen, was the perfect cover at first. A Danish woman with access to European banks. But the same global connections they used to clean their money ended up becoming their undoing. In 1987, Danish officials uncovered over $500,000 sitting suspiciously in Mario's Copenhagen bank account. That discovery set off alarms. When Mario, Bo, and Hella flew to Denmark that December, they didn't know that authorities were already waiting for them. As soon as they checked into their rooms at the Siavo Hotel, Danish investigators installed wiretaps. What they heard over the next few days was enough to bring an empire crashing down. Bo and Mario talked openly about their operations, using coded language, referring to kilos as birds or chickens, and discussed millions of dollars owed to the Cali cartel. They even went as far as planning their next massive shipment while sitting in those bugged hotel rooms. When the group continued on to Milan, Italy, Italian police picked up where the Danes left off, wiretapping their hotel phones and recording even more incriminating conversations.
It is alleged their ill-gotten gains were laundered in Denmark. It is there that local authorities, through wiretaps, blew the whistle on the organization.
From that point, their downfall was a countdown. The feds had everything they needed: the money trails, the wiretaps, and the evidence of international trafficking. But the final blow came from a traffic stop. On November 6, 1988, in Missouri, two of Bo's men were driving through with a load. They were clocked going 68 in a 55-mile-per-hour zone, a minor infraction. The trooper pulled them over, and within minutes, the situation turned from routine to historic. Inside the car, officers discovered 1,100 pounds of worth about $14 million. But what really sealed Bo's fate wasn't the drugs. It was the technology. Hidden inside the car was a cellular phone, still rare at the time, with Bo's personal Arizona number saved in the memory. That was the smoking gun, a direct link tying Bo to one of the biggest shipments ever seized in the US. Once that phone number hit the evidence list, it was game over. Federal agencies moved in quickly, seizing everything tied to Bo's name. They froze accounts, raided stash houses, and confiscated assets worth over $45 million. Days later, in Detroit, agents caught another one of his crews transporting $5.4 million in cash, 700 pounds of it, packed like gold bricks in duffel bags. The entire machine he built was collapsing piece by piece.
10 days ago, federal officials seized 700 pounds of cash, nearly $6 million being transported by associates of Bennett.
On November 19, 1987, the takedown was complete. In a coordinated federal raid, Bo Bennett, just 24 years old, was arrested at his mansion in Tempe, while Mario Villabona was picked up simultaneously at his Malibu home. The two men who had quietly moved tons of across the United States were now being dragged out of their luxury homes in handcuffs.
Bennett was arrested November the 19th at his Tempe, Arizona home. Villabona was taken into custody in Malibu.
Their trial would become one of the most significant drug cases of the decade. The pair were represented by none other than David Kenner, the same sharp-tongued defense attorney who would later help Suge Knight set up Death Row Records, ironically funded with money that originated from Bo's profits. In November 1990, the verdict came down. Brian Bennett and Mario Villabona were found guilty of drug and money laundering. Judge William J. Rhea, applying the newly enacted federal Kingpin statute, handed them both life sentences without the possibility of parole. When Bo and Mario were finally taken down, the impact of their arrest rippled through Los Angeles immediately. For 3 straight months, the supply dried up completely. Dealers were scrambling, addicts were desperate, and the entire LA drug economy stalled. Street historians still talk about it as the drought, the time when the weight vanished overnight. But Bo's legacy wasn't just in the chaos he left behind. It was in the model he created. Before him, drug dealing was fragmented. The Colombians had their own system, and American street gangs had theirs. Bo was the first to truly merge the two worlds. He showed that the cartels didn't need to operate from afar. They could plug directly into the American street pipeline. His partnership with Mario Villabona became the first clear bridge between the Cali cartel and the gang infrastructure that dominated U.S. cities. It's no wonder TV shows and movies would later draw inspiration from his life. In Snowfall, Franklin and Bo were young, ambitious, and methodical, building empires with corporate precision. But that's where the similarities end. Franklin's story was written for television, full of redemption arcs and bittersweet endings. Bo's story was real, and reality doesn't write happy endings for drug lords.
I'm free. Free from all of it.
While Franklin got to walk away in fiction, Bo faced the full weight of the American justice system. He spent over 2 decades behind bars, living the slow grind of prison life while watching the world he once ruled evolve without him. But time has a way of reshaping people. After serving roughly 25 years, both Bo and Mario were eventually released. Today, Bo lives quietly, off the radar, far removed from the flash and fury of his past. Those who've crossed paths with him say he spends his time mentoring young people, warning them about the illusions of fast money and the traps of the streets.